right, everyone. How is the mic sounding now? Hopefully, much better. As you can see up on the screen here is the Core Issues podcast Facebook page. This is where I have the the episodes of each Core Issues podcast displayed. So after I do the show, I will have them shared over onto this page, as well as if you don't catch them here, they will also be shared at Anchor FM, where you can listen to the podcast if you wish. However, it's still too low, huh? Well, still wondering. I changed the mic, and it still sounds the mic input was too. Oh, now Matthew says it's fine. Is it sounding better? Is it sounding better? You said that was you, Matthew. Is it sounding better now? Because I switched my mic input. It was going off of the wrong. It's going off of the wrong device. So, is it coming over better now? Let's hope so. Okay, well, you say it's better. Hopefully it is, because I totally switched my mic in, but if that didn't solve it, I don't know what is. So, I don't know. So, let me pump up my end here. Let's do this here. We're going to get rid of the Core Issues podcast screen. I'm going to turn the volume up over here. It's definitely coming over my phone better. Yep, I think it is. All right, good. Sounds good. Well, I'm getting Matthew saying it sounds good, so that must be better. What happened, I found out, was you have mic inputs on here, and apparently I have a little tiny microphone that sits underneath my PC monitor, and that's just my standard old cheesy mic I've had around forever. And then I had this mic connected right here. Well, for some reason in my settings, it was not coming over this microphone, but now it is. Now I've connected it, and my microphone settings do say that I am putting it out this microphone, so that's the best I can do. So I hope that is coming over better. As I look on here again to check, yeah, headset, Turtle Beach headset, everything's coming through here. Everything's working through the headset now, so we should be good to go. So, all right, well, thank you for the sound check there. So let me run through this again. As I said before earlier tonight, this is an issue dealing with the new Moderna and Pfizer vaccines that are coming out, and people questioning, are these new vaccines by Moderna and Pfizer, are they safe and ethical? In other words, is abortion, fetal cells, what's mRNA, what's HEC-293, what are these things? Are these safe and ethical vaccines? The two new ones coming out, Pfizer just coming out and already being delivered and being shipped here in the U.S. right now, coming to your door possibly soon. And this is the question. Are these being created in any way, shape, or form with the use of aborted fetal tissue? So, let's discuss that here now. Covering, sounds very low to you too there, Deborah. Wow, well, it sounds better for there. I don't know what to say here. My mic is coming over. Well, thanks for telling me, because I am lost as to how to get this thing up louder. So Matthew's got it better. Deborah does not. Sounds very low to you. Well, my mic's there. We're maxed there. I did fix the input. It is definitely coming through the input correctly now. Oh, let's see. Well, maybe this will just turn into a great big sound test. So thanks for that. Well, at least those who are tuning in can help with that here. Tune this in. Audio. Let's see. Why is it? Maybe that's it. Let's see. I see you there, yeah. Let's see. This may be it. Now I bet this is going to do it. All right. I changed it in the computer settings, but I did not change it in these settings. I didn't know it ever turned off these settings somehow. So let's see. Okay. So here's the test. All right. Now, how's that sound? Is that coming over better? Anybody hearing that? That's my new, that I'm almost positive is the correct sound. Good, it's coming over. I just got the thumbs up from my wife. That is amazing. There we go. Ta-da. So, sound check. Got that set in there, and now we're going. So I think it's worthwhile. We didn't waste too much time on that. We'll just stick with it. Thank you, everybody, for the help. So, let's get into it. As you know, Core Issues Podcast is a podcast dealing with all issues that touch everybody, and how does the gospel touch those issues? The gospel being that Jesus Christ, the God-man, second person of the triune Godhead, came down, took on flesh, born of a virgin, and lived the perfect life that you and I could never lead, and then died a sacrificial atoning death, suffering the wrath of God poured out on him on that cross. Every bit of what we deserved in an eternity of hell, he took on himself to save his people from their sins. Anybody throughout all of time, either those looking forward to the Messiah to come, all of us looking back now to the Messiah that did come, any one of them, ever, and throughout all of history, who would humble themselves, repent, and trust in the finished work of Christ on Calvary, trust in the Savior God was going to send, or the Savior that God has sent, the same being Jesus Christ, who we meet in Scripture and in Scripture alone. And if you're trusting in him and him alone, then you have everlasting life. And that is the gospel of Jesus Christ in a nutshell. And that is, how does it touch on this issue? Well, like you can see, this issue with vaccines ties into abortion, ties into research with fetal tissue and cells and all of that. And so this is talking about murder, as abortion is just a pseudonym, just a simple sanitized word people like to use instead of saying the longer and more accurate slaughter of preborn image bearers of God is what it really is. So that's what I call it. That's what it should be called. That's why my last episode, if you didn't watch yet, I had an interesting episode titled, I don't want to talk about abortion, and I'm not a pro-lifer. And I'm not pro-life. And that might have sounded almost like clickbait and deceptive in a way, but it was true, because I don't want to talk about abortion. I wanted to talk about the preborn image bearers of God being slaughtered by mothers and daughters, being killed right there because of people's unwillingness to do what is right in the eyes of God. So that's what people do. They murder their babies, and they do it. That's what people want to do. They want to murder their babies. They want to kill them, and they want to be able to do it under color of law. And so I said, I don't want to talk about abortion. I want to talk about the preborn image bearers being slaughtered by selfish, wicked people seeking to fulfill their own desires and cast off their responsibilities in caring for children. That's what I wanted to talk about. And I'm not pro-life, because I'm not pro-life. I'm an abolitionist, and abolitionists are about biblical, uncompromising ways to deal with this issue. And this issue ties to too much in this world, and it ties directly to these vaccines. And that's the sad truth, friends. We're going to hear some things as I go over things tonight. We're going to discuss things about things I use terms. I'm trying to remember this term again. You'll see it as I read it, but it's an absolutely stupid term. But it's called these vaccines. A Christian/Catholic group said that this is ethically I don't know what it was. I keep forgetting. Unsubstantial. Some stupid thing to basically say there's nothing wrong with these vaccines as far as abortion goes. Well, folks, anytime you're using something that has anything to do with the creation, with its testing, with its use, by using something, by testing something, by doing it through destroying a preborn image bearer of God, whether you test the subject, are you testing the product, or whether you're creating the product using aborted fetal cells, aborted fetal remains, or whether you are culturing it in those fetal cells, these immortalized cell lines, it doesn't matter how far back they go. It doesn't matter how many years ago it doesn't matter how small they are. It's Mengele-esque, Nazi-esque type of science that brings about
these vaccines, brings about a lot of the medical research that we have nowadays. I'm going to point you to some stuff today that may blow your mind as you look at this stuff, as you see what has actually gone on. We're going to talk about things here as I get in here that are even more crazy than you may have thought. You ever heard stuff when you think about testing being done in labs, and you hear people talk about testing by using mice? And you think, oh, well, yeah, animal testing on mice. Well, it's better than testing on humans, of course. And, that's good because, hey, it keeps humans from being hurt. So, yeah, it's good to test on mice. But did you know that there are humanized mice? You ever heard of that? Humanized mice. We're going to look at an article tonight about a guy who has already created, has been using since at least 2016, and many others are using it as well. But this guy has been using humanized mice. And now that, don't be deceived, there are other humanized mice. There are humanized mice that are made humanized using like adult stem cells and things like that. There are those, but there are specific humanized mice that are being created, not just like culturing or making an in vitro fertilization type mouse, culturing something in the cell lines even of HEC-293 or some other abortion's fetal cell line, which would be bad enough. No. These are mice that are their immune systems radiated and killed. And then they take literal ground up baby body parts from a aborted baby, a slaughtered preborn image bearer, and they take those parts and they inject them into the mice so that they can humanize their immune system. This is being done. Babies are being bought and used by scientists in a National Institute of Health lab. In other words, authorized by our National Institute of Health, been paid for years by our government, by your tax dollars, but possibly not being paid for right now just for the COVID-19 virus. Possibly, because we don't know whether he ever got approved. Last articles I'm reading are back in March and April, whether he got approved to use this. But undoubtedly, they're being used elsewhere. In fact, other scientists have offered to give him the mice to use, but he wanted to get them officially through the NIH and get the proper sponsoring, get all his ducks in a row. But obviously other people are offering to them because they're using them. So they're using them as they're researching this stuff out in other places in other countries that are not restricted by our government setup. But that's the type of wickedness, that's the type of Frankenstein, Nazi-esque garbage we are all part of because we have not abolished this travesty, abolished the murder of preborn image bearers in our country. So now people actually get to have arguments over whether it's an ethical use. Just think of that. If you put ethical use in front of anything that has to do with aborted fetal cells, aborted fetal tissue, cell lines derived from them, immortalized cell lines, if you have to put them in front of anything that has to do with aborted baby cells, it is not ethical. If you put ethical in front of it, it's unethical. And you'll see that the standards they use, when we go through the information, you'll see that those ethics are poor and weak and beggarly and surely not worthy of being called a Christian ethic by any means. So, gone through that now, let's go up to some actual articles, some actual pictures, so you can see what I'm talking about. So you actually see where I am getting this information. Now, it's interesting as I try to, my only problem is getting this little mouse thing to roll up there. There we go. Let's go up to, we'll start with the pictures I've got here of clips right from articles. This is from a Catholic news agency talking about the connections between the vaccines and the use of their fetal tissue in their study. Moderna's vaccine, says here, based on the coronavirus RNA, uses a spike protein, or peplimer. Now, here's the key. That spike protein was originally figured out, it was originally brought about through the use of the HEC-293 aborted fetal cell line. RNA is injected into the recipient, which induces their cells to produce the spike protein that triggers the production of antibodies and T cells by the recipient. Now listen to this. Moderna's vaccine is not completely free of any connection to abortion, as there's evidence that the vaccines have some connection with the use of aborted fetal cells in the early stages of vaccine design. And I will prove that to you. And it isn't just said here. It isn't just said there's evidence. I'll show you the evidence. I had to hunt it down, track it down. I will show you the evidence that it definitely was used. And in case you don't believe what this Catholic news agency has to say, I will show it to you. And listen, they're not completely free from the both Pfizer and Moderna made use of tainted cell lines for one of the confirmatory lab tests of their products, the bishops wrote, referring to HEC-293T cell line. Now, you'll hear that a lot. Now, how you know that this is a human fetal cell line is very simple. You got to know what HEC means. And I'll tell you what HEC means. Very simply, it means human embryonic kidney cells. So that's pretty simple to understand. Human embryonic kidney cells. That is the line. That is what it comes from. So you have no doubt. If you see this before it, HEC 293, human embryonic kidney cells. This were a cell line derived, gotten from a kidney from an aborted baby in the Netherlands. There is thus a connection to fetal tissue, but it is relatively remote. See, just because it's far away doesn't mean it's ethical. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean you're not profiting off the murder of a preborn image bearer of God. Friends, it's despicable. We don't want to make excuses for it. We want to stick by the truth. How should those ethical issues be taken into account? Excuse me, folks. Hope that didn't blow you out with a sneeze. There's no, listen to this. This is interesting. Coming out of sciencenews.org, listening to this. This is even worse. Just to hear this statement here. This is really, I hope it bothers you, because this means this is something we're all dealing with. This is something that hits all of us. There's no avoiding immortal cell lines. That's what HEC 293 is. Certainly, I would expect that they would be involved in some of the work, directly or not, in any vaccine that comes out. And we're proving that indeed they are. By that other article and the things I'm going to show you later, they are. Rasmussen says, even though HeLa cells or HEC 293 cells might not be used in the production of a particular COVID-19 vaccine, they are being used as scientists work to understand the virus. Some knowledge gained from those cell lines will go into a vaccine at the very least. Okay, now you may be wondering, well, what's HeLa? The HeLa line is not an aborted fetal cell. It does have ethical issues as well. HeLa, I don't know the exact details, but it was from a African-American woman who had certain cells taken out of her. I think it was in her treatment of some disease, but it was done a long time ago, and the doctors felt they had full rights to do whatever they want, and they extracted her cells and are using cells or something from her body and have immortalized that cell line without her permission. I don't know if it was even before or after she died or during a surgery procedure or whatever it was. So now there's ethical problems with that, of course. They were experimenting on a woman who did not give their consent, and I think it's because of the racist intentions of folks back then. They just figured they didn't have to worry about getting permission from a black woman. So there's all kinds of stink even in the black community about that cell line, and rightly so. So HEC 293 dealing with specifically aborted fetal cells. So when we're talking about aborted fetal cells, HEC 293 is the key in that situation there. Now moving on to the next one. Finally, from what connection back to the Catholic News Agency article? Charlotte Lozier Institute, this is the one I was talking about that I felt was absolutely ridiculous, and I like the fact that at least this Catholic doctor says somewhat the same. Charlotte Lozier Institute, research arm of the pro-life Susan B. Anthony list, again, why I'm not pro-life, why I'm an abolitionist, has listed the modern vaccine among the, quote, ethically uncontroversial COVID-19 vaccine programs. So they're saying Moderna and Pfizer, these are under the ethically uncontroversial COVID-19 vaccine programs. In other words, these are fine, no controversy in using these. However, let's listen to Dr. Stacy Transankos, a chemist, argued in a November 20th National Catholic Register op-ed that listing a vaccine which has even remote connection to aborted tissue as ethically uncontroversial could undermine the Catholic fight for ethical medicines. Instead of assigning this vaccine to a category that suggests no more caution is needed, I think it is better to slow down and look at the big picture. We need to speak up loudly, with clarity and courage about the ethics and insist upon an ethical option. It could redirect this entire issue towards the good, she wrote in her op-ed. So, even the Catholic doctor is saying, hey, folks, come on. Let's not just throw this and just throw an ethically uncontroversial tag on this and be done with it. This could compromise Catholic ethics in dealing with this. Well, of course it compromises. It compromises anybody that has any type of a biblical ethic, even though the Catholics stray from a good biblical ethic. In many a thing, at least this, they're understanding, at least she's understanding, that this is ridiculous. This is unethical. We can't do this. Let's not slap an unethical, an uncontroversial, ethically uncontroversial tag on something that we know is still being brought about by the use of slaughter and preborn image bearers of aborted fetus. So regardless of what the Charlotte Lozier Institute says, part of the Susan B. Anthony list, their pro-life group, let's listen to just common sense and reason in the Bible, folks, in that when you're using something for testing or for production that is human cells, human tissue, human parts in some way, shape, or form by humans that were murdered, then, friends, there's no ethical use for that. And here's the thing. Now, I addressed this in a previous episode, but I'm going to throw this in here right now as well. Todd Friel did a little, and you can go watch my whole episode on it if you want. I have it listed in this thing as my response to his episode on vaccines. He used a comparison he thought was, at least he presented it as, equally the same type of thing. In other words, he compared it as an apples to apples comparison, saying, now, if a drunk driver hits and kills somebody, and then you get the kidney, or per se, from that person who was killed by the drunk driver, that's basically the same thing as getting a vaccine created by aborted fetal cells, cell lines, or even cell tissue or whatever from an aborted fetus that was murdered. Well, right off the get-go, everyone should see immediately. Now, obviously, not everybody does see. Todd should see it. He's smart enough, but he didn't see it, and he thought it was an accurate apples to apples comparison. But it's obviously apples to oranges, at least in a couple of ways. And think about this. Let's just go over it with me. Okay, number one, is drunk driving illegal? Yes, in every state there is. So we're not on the same page right there. The person who is drunk driving right off the start is doing something illegal. They're committing a crime. They are drunk driving, okay? Number two, is the person drunk driving, for the most part, are they intending to kill people? Mostly not, no. I mean, there might be some drunks go out and drive and kill, but the average drunk driver is just drunk. They drink too much, they don't think, they go out and they kill people. And then they usually get charged, when they do, with criminally negligent homicide or some form of lesser manslaughter, because they are not going out with the intent to murder people. They're going out with the intent to get drunk that night, or even just to go drinking and not even intend to get drunk, and they do, and they lose control of their car, they pass out, they do whatever it is, and they hit somebody, and sometimes people die. But the person that performs an abortion is going in specifically to murder a preborn image bearer of God, and they know that it's a baby, and there's no joke about it, there's no doubt about it. It's ridiculous to even think abortion is premeditated murder. It's the premeditated slaughter of a preborn image bearer. There is no comparison in at least those two categories, okay? So, what we're having an issue with is, now, here's where the problem would be. If people all of a sudden said, hey, let's not charge drunk drivers anymore with drunk driving, because we've been able to get a lot of good organ donations from drunk drivers who die, or other people who die because of drunk drivers. So let's decriminalize drunk driving, because we can then use the tissue from their bodies and their organs to help other people. That would alleviate the illegality issue with that, okay? Still wouldn't eliminate your intent issue with your drunkards, but at least would eliminate the illegality issue, the unlawfulness. It would get rid of one of your 2 points there, Todd. But it's wrong on that point. He's wrong on that key, in those two key issues. And here's the other biggie here. We, again, I've said this before, I said it earlier in this, we cannot look at anything being derived from slaughtered preborn image bearers and see that as a good thing, or ethically, as it would say here, uncontroversial. These were done with the consent. And here's the thing, this is the thing I want to get to here. There are people now, and you read it through these articles, and I'll share you some. If you want to go through more of them, you can see, or you can find it elsewhere, and you've probably heard it yourself. Now they're even asking women often, Planned Parenthood speaks to doing this often, asking the women if they would like to donate the fetal remains to science research when they abort their babies, when they kill them. And many of them will, of course, say yes, because it gives them a little warm fuzzy and helps them to feel better about forwarding the good health of someone else, possibly by their baby who they've murdered. Tries to assuage their conscience a bit for their wickedness. So, by doing this, by continuing to allow the slaughter of preborn image bearers, by continuing to compromise and treat it sinfully with partiality, as the Bible would call what pro-lifers do, by treating it with sinful partiality, by saying, let's save these babies and not these, let's try to make some kind of laws to restrict instead of abolish, we are having arguments over what's the ethical way and what's the most ethical way to go about it, instead of treating it like Scripture does, you shall not murder, end this now, repent of this wickedness, and stop. And then we won't have to have these arguments about ethical uses of slaughtered pre-mortem image bearers' body parts. But be that as it may, we are today. And I would tell you from a Christian standpoint, and I think the Bible backs me up, that obviously there is no ethical reason, and that's just debunking Todd's little discussion on it, as it were, there now. So, where did these some other issues here talking with it? This is I said I would give you the proof of where these things came from. This is the website that you could link to that tells you the proof of the COVID-19 vaccine using HEC293 cells in it. But you look at this and you go, wow, that's huge. Where do I find that from? How do I find it? Well, what I did, because this is a easy way to do it, and when I try to open up a web page, it crashes doing it. But you see that little sign there? It says download PDF. That's what I did. So you download the PDF, and once you download the PDF, then once that's done, then you can go down here to your pictures, and when you got the PDF file downloaded, what I had to do was then take and go into the PDF. It's always the easiest way to do it. If you have a PDF reader, you know how to do it. And you see right here, when you open up through like Adobe Reader, there's your little search bar. And what I did is I simply searched HEC293. And if you can see, it's very small, but you see a find 1 of 5. And you can see the highlighted, the very first one where we see HEC293 T cells being used. And then you see the second one. It's not as bright because I'm only on the first one, but what I did, because when I couldn't open a PDF in this program, and when I tried to open the actual web page that had certain PDFs in it, it won't open those type of web pages either. It crashes the system while I was trying to film, so it would just crash the system. So what I had to do instead was use my old screen clip, and I took a screenshot of this and cropped it down so you could see it. So that is what it's from. This is the PDF from that web page I just showed you, where you can see the information about HEC293 cells being used in the Pfizer vaccines right there. So there's that one. Now, here's a list. This is a web page. Again, another one it's a web page as a PDF that I can't use because when you use, like I said, when you try to load up these PDFs as a web page, it crashes the system. But here you can see, here is the COVID-19 vaccines and treatments in development, updated December 5th, 2020. This is from Children of God for Life. It's a pro-life website that tracks all this stuff, and it has a list 3 pages long. You see 1 through 3. And you can go look this up, and you can find these COVID-19 vaccine treatments in development right now. And these are all the companies making vaccines. And I'm going to expand it again bigger than I am so you can see it a little more clearly here. So you can see here, AVM Biotech over here was originally produced with or contains aborted fetal cells. These are the certain ones, Moderna, Naiad, Johnson & Johnson, Janssen Tech. These are the certain companies using, whether they've used them, or down here you can see where they highlight tested on HEK 293 cell aborted fetal cells, but not necessarily used in it. And all these, you can see these little blue, these are all web links. So that's where I found the link. I found the web link, went to it on here, and pulled it up, and that's where I got the article, and that's where I download the PDF from. But you can check all these out on all the different vaccines being produced, so you can see this and get this checked out. So anyway, let me do that. Let me show you the next one. This is the one that I actually found the one from Pfizer on, so you can see directly where I got that from. Here it is down here, BioNTech, and Pfizer. Here's the article. I clipped it from down here, the BioVix, and I downloaded the PDF from there. This site from Children of God for Life has all kinds of good information for you. You can check it out on there and get their information. But that has all kinds of good stuff for you there to find out just the type of groups that are doing their wickedness with this vaccine, how they're building it. They're all touched by it, friends. All these vaccines, even the newest mRNA ones that they say, oh, they're not created with fetal cells, they're not created with human cells at all, not created with cells. It's this new mRNA, which is freaky in itself. I mean, RNA is a whole new type of vaccine, and it's never been tested. We're testing it for a few months and shooting it out by the millions of doses. And here's an interesting, scary little article. Let's pull this down here because this was interesting as I pulled this up before, and we'll go over it again here. Let's see. That's facts, not fiction. Trying to find there was this, is that it? I think that's it. What connection does Moderna's vaccine have to it? Just another one there. I already showed you what you can see there. HEC-293T. Cells in question were not used to evaluate the vaccine itself, but he explained that it was used in the original testing, original building of it. You can find it in those other articles there. This is the Catholic News Agency. They are not completely free from any. However, as Pfizer and Moderna made use of tainted cell line for the use of confirmatory lab products, and I read that to you. This is just the bigger article that I snagged those lines out of there. So I'm trying to find the other one where we can see the danger that came from. Let's see. That's the death totals one. I have one that has a Catholic priest who volunteered to test it, and he died by using it. So it's interesting. Oh, that's the longitudinal test one there. Went through that one already. Where is that article? I know I had it on here before because I played it in the last episode. But I'm going to see if I can find that real quick because I already did it before. And let's see. After testing vaccine. I bet I can find that pretty quickly here. There it is. Priest who participated in trial for unethical Moderna vaccine. Let's do this. For some reason, I could not find it in here, so we'll just put it right in here, brand new again, at our source web page, and here we go. Ta-da! Let's pull down the old LifeSite news here, and everybody can follow along with me. Here we go. Priest who participated in trial for unethical Moderna vaccine dies suddenly. Now, at least LifeSite's saying it's unethical. Who cares if somebody calls it ethically uncontroversial? We know that HEC-293 cells were used in the Moderna production and the Moderna research. They're tied to it. You can't get away from it. And we know that through that, Father John Fields was Communications and Religious Education Director for the Archeparchy of Philadelphia, whatever that is. Part of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, announcing his death, stated that Father Fields has passed away in his home. Cause of death yet to be determined. So I'm not saying it was because of it, but it says just recently Fields had participated in the trials of Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine. After receiving an email from the University of Pennsylvania at the end of August asking if he wished to participate in the third and final phase of the vaccine, he said he'd be happy to. He talks all about it. So let me just leave it at that. You guys can determine whether you think it had anything to do with his death or not. All we know is that he willingly, happily decided to take that vaccine in their final stage trial before it gets released to the public. And hey, it is shipping right now to the public. It is out there right now for you to get as soon as it lands in your area and you're on the list. I'm sure it's going to take a little bit of time, but hey, it's being shipped right now. It's been covered by the FDA, and you can get this vaccine for yourself here coming soon. And it killed the priest. Maybe it will kill you. Who knows? Again, the article does not say it killed him, so maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic there. But you think on your own self whether you think this rather healthy priest otherwise at 70 years old took this and then died shortly after. Be that as it may. And again, another cool fun fact about vaccines is that whoa, got rid of mine. That's not what I want to get rid of. Cool fun facts here about vaccine producers is that because of their dangerous problems they have, and because of things that happen wrong with them, and because Big Pharma has got big government in their pockets, it is illegal for you to sue. In other words, if they kill you or they maim you, you cannot file a lawsuit against a vaccine producer. So, hey, you know what? That priest and his archdiocese, they're all out of it, but I guess Rome's got plenty of money anyway. They don't need to really sue anybody for this. But the fact of the matter is, folks, you can't sue either. And there's no way to get any money back out of anybody for damages if you're injured or someone dies in your family. You're just out of luck because you cannot sue the producers of vaccines. There's law been passed on that. So anyway, shared you that one. Now, I talked about the mice in the humanized mice, and I said I'd give you proof of that. I wasn't just going to leave you hanging, because there's definitely proof. I didn't just make up now. I know that somebody on the screen here earlier said, yeah, that sounds like Frankenstein type stuff. Well, it is, and it definitely is, and it's wicked, and it's horrible, and it is real. I'm going to show you really quickly a couple different articles. Here's the Breitbart article. Fact check, left-wing media claim aborted baby parts needed to cure coronavirus. And this is what it's talking about, and I encourage you to go check out there. But see, these are carried articles from both Washington Post and Vox, very left-wing things. And ever since the Trump administration finally in 2019 put a ban on fetal tissue research, which, mind you, it was not really a true ban. It was only a restriction because 14 people just applied for recent fetal cell research grants, and 13 of the 14 were denied, but one got through. I don't know which one it was, but you can read about it. I believe it's in this article about the organization, how the government going through those now through a board that determines whether they're going to get funding or not. Be that as it may, ban or close to ban, these situations are taking place where you still can get it if you really want. But here's the interesting thing. This guy who wanted to do this research, I was talking about with the humanized mice, this has been taking place. It has been taking place since as early at least as December 2016. And here's records from Judicial Watch that pulled up, and here's one of the quotes from the government watchdog organization continued. The records show that NIH, that's National Institutes of Health, that's our federal agency that handles this stuff, that from 16 to 18 to Advanced Bioscience Resources, that is the same company who got shut down from funding a lot because of the David Dalladin videos when we saw Planned Parenthood selling baby body parts on those videos, and they lost funding immediately. However, some other places did. And here is interesting here. They include at least 26 purchases from ABR before they were stopped receiving their funding for things, by Dr. Kim Hassenkrug. Dr. Kim Hassenkrug, senior investigator at NIH lab in Hamilton, Montana, purchase orders associated with the transaction state these tissues, liver and thymus, are required by Dr. Ron Mezer for ongoing studies of HIV in the Hassenkrug lab. Our mice will be ready for reconstitution soon. So, not just for new COVID-19, but in the past, being used for HIV research, being used for all types of research. And if you want to reach out and know more, you can look at this article, but I'm going to go to the other one that I have, which I think is a little better for showing it. We're going to go to let's close this one down, and let's go to the Rocky Mountain one, Montana Daily Gazette. Let's pull that one up. There he is. There's your Montana researcher. There's Mr. Hassenkrug. Montana researcher says he needs aborted babies to cure coronavirus. Now, obviously, that's kind of a clickbait attitude article title, but he is definitely using that. Here it is. Medical researcher Hamilton, Montana, has been importing dead babies for his medical research, likely in violation of federal law. The Montana Daily Gazette reported on Kim Hassenkrug's morbid fascination with dead babies last month. First reported by The Sun, Hassenkrug made the news for trying to fuse mice with human DNA obtained by fetal tissue imported from out-of-state abortion clinics. That he would reassert, and in response, President Donald Trump signaled that he would reassert the ban on buying electively aborted babies for this purpose. Well, isn't that nice? He'd reassert the ban, the restriction on that type of work. But let's see if we can pull up the right article. In previously when I pulled up this article, it ended up not showing as well. Let's see. I think I put it in there before. We'll see if it's in here. I might actually have it, but we'll just add it in here so you can actually see kind of the gross little picture of how they're actually doing this from the Sun article here. There it is. Let's pull this over here. We'll just grab it there, drag it down there. Aborted babies are being used in macabre experiments in the U.S. that involve grafting dead fetus parts onto mice, which are then used to test drugs. Isn't that nice? So there you go. There is a mouse right there being shot with a needle. A mouse during humanization experiments. See, I didn't make this stuff up, folks. This isn't a joke. I mean, Vox, the Sun, the Breitbart, these things are not just made up. I mean, if you just heard from the Sun, which is kind of like the Inquirer, you might think, oh, that's crazy. But this stuff's being backed up. This stuff's well known. But here's kind of the idea. This is what they do. They take a mouse, and they destroy the mouse's immune system using radiation. And then, using aborted baby organs, thymus and liver, ground up, the mouses, they then take that and then they insert that into the mouse. They put the tissue, ground up, crushed baby body parts, the thymus and liver, inject it into the mice, and then they do treatment on those mice with their humanized immune system and see how they respond to that treatment. So in the past, where you might have thought to yourself, oh, they're using mice. Well, that's good. Better to use mice than, humans. Better to use mice even than a chimpanzee, some may say. But hey, it doesn't get away with that anymore. Look what it says right here. Right here, filmmaker, aborted babies' bodies are a very valuable commodity in today's America. Research institutions, elite universities, medical centers pay a lot of money for baby parts. Isn't that the truth? See, here we are. They're being used. Aim is try to force rodents to develop immune systems, which are like humans, so they can develop treatments for such diseases as AIDS and cancer, and now for COVID-19. So this is from them in his previous use, what he was using for it. He has already been doing this. This isn't a doubt. This isn't anything that anybody's arguing about. The only question was is he actually doing this right now for COVID-19? And that's the only thing we really don't know about. We just don't know whether he's ever been approved. He put in for an exception to the rule back in March and April, I believe. He put in for quite a few. I don't know if he ever got it passed. I don't know if he ever got it given to him. But he's been applying for it, and he's had people offer to give him the mice anyway without getting government funding for it. So he uses them. He does this type of work, and this type of work that he does, continues to do, and will continue to do, especially by next month when the Biden administration kicks in, and all that stuff I'm sure will be dropped away. Even if there was any doubt that he's using them, I'm sure he'll be using them openly if he isn't already now, as soon as that comes around. So you can keep working on a new vaccine, a new product for COVID-19, and continuing to use it in all the other research people are using, just like you heard in the article earlier. Because of our wickedness and because of the widespread just judgment we deserve for sure, you're seeing that people are using aborted fetal cells, aborted fetal tissue, aborted baby parts for all types of research, and it touches on just about everything out there. So, the big question, the question we addressed in this episode, the question I really wanted to get out there for you to see is every one of the vaccines, even the newest Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, are being used and are being in some way tested, in some way done, brought about, using aborted baby body parts, whether it be as small as a cell line, whether it be in testing through mice, whether it be in testing through original work done to original research for the viruses and for their vaccines, whatever it is, none of them are untouched by this wickedness. None of them. Some as you read through those articles and those pages I've shown you, you can find where there are actually some saying that's actually in them because they're actually cultivating the virus in the cell line. So it depends on which vaccine you get, whether you get the vaccine that's been brought about using the actual HEC293 cell lines or others, or whether it's brought about through using the spike protein created through the mRNA vaccine, which also was tested using the aborted fetal cell. It's just like this, folks. So you cannot get away from it. You cannot get away from the ethical dilemma. I mean, just think about this. Let's make it more big and easy to see as a real big problem. Let's just say, in some strange new experiment that they learned through some new Nazi-esque Mengele-style study, that a young child at a certain age had a bone structure that if you took the bone chunks out of that body and implanted it and infused it to a older adult in their 50s or so who are struggling from, as we know, losing bone calcium and starting to get brittler, weaker bones, that if they fused certain parts of the bone to an older adult bone cells, an older adult arm, that it would regrow that tissue. It would help it and it would grow better. Now, let's just say that two different people had figured out how to do this. And one of the people who'd figured out how to do this figured out how to do it by literally breaking the kid's arm, cutting the kid's arm off, or taking the arm from a kid who got murdered by someone, some 8-year-old who got murdered, and taking that bone out and fusing it to fusing it to the person, and that it worked. And they said, well, and I'm not talking about the ethics of whether that's right or wrong or not. I'm just saying that they did that. Let's just say they did that. Now, how the connection would work is they say, now the next researcher comes out and says, well, listen, we figured out a way to do this, and we figured out how to replicate the cells, but we had to test it. We had to test the procedure by getting a bone out of a murdered 8-year-old, and we used that for previous testing. And we did all the research, pulled that out, and by testing all that and finding all that, then we were able to find those same cells from umbilical cord stem cells, which are very malleable and changeable, which is true. And they use the umbilical T cells, and using the research they have found the way to manipulate it and flip the right switches in the DNA and make those stem cells produce like the bone, and therefore be able to insert that into the person and do the same thing in strengthening the bones. Now, are both of those ethical? Are both of those the using the child's broken arm, using the child's bones? Yes, they are. Are they separated in any way? Not really. I mean, just because one cultures it actually in the cell, and just because one uses those broken bone parts and does testing on it and studies and tries to figure out how it's going to work, and then goes and uses a separate process, both of them are using that 8-year-old's arm bone parts. So, yes, I'm not talking the ethics of that, because, hey, that doesn't even happen yet, I think, hopefully. But that would be kind of the apples and orange if it was an involuntary murder of a child, kind of things we're talking about, the drunk drivers and stuff. But I'm just saying you can't separate the connection. And just because someone tests using aborted fetal cell lines, or tests using literal aborted fetal tissue inside a mouse, just because they're not using that in the actual vaccine that you get from them, doesn't remove their guilt for using aborted fetal tissue, aborted fetal cell lines in producing that vaccine through their testing and their trial and error process. That's pretty simple, folks. I don't know how you can't see that. I hope doesn't get past you there. Pretty simple stuff there. Now, I'm going to close up like I did last time, playing a little video for you. Now, this video, you might look at it and go, oh, that's kind of weird. This video is kind of comical. If you've ever watched J.P. Sears, J.P. is a comedian. J.P.'s being threatened to be deplatformed from YouTube because of his recent videos, his recent stuff with COVID-19. Now, J.P.'s not a Christian, and some of his videos aren't always clean. He's mostly clean, but every once in a while there's a little foulness in there. This one's pretty much totally clean, unless you don't like the word suck. But anyway, he other than that, he is pretty clean. In this video, it has, I'll stop it a little bit in it on a couple points, because even though it's meant to be funny, there's some tragic stats he shows in this, and he's really hitting the nail on the head. No wonder they're threatening to deplatform him, because he's making the world and their systems look really stupid, and it's really bad when the world is showing how stupid the world is. But let's watch this video from JP. It's only 3-4 minutes long, and then I'll try to wrap up things after that. What in the world is this? I don't know what that guy was, but that obviously wasn't the video I'm looking for. It's you can see that's the article, but somehow it moved to a TED Talk. We moved into a TED Talk because it changed. So let's just find it. We'll pull him up here. That's a good one too. You should. I'm scrolling through. You should watch the Why Small Businesses Stay Closed Forever. That may even be better. And I watched that one earlier today. But I want to look at the specific stats in this video that are kind of mind-boggling. Oh man, I'm gonna have to go to his page. Sorry that the stupid thing didn't. Whenever you don't stay with the videos, sometimes it shows more. Let's pull this down here. Videos. It is important. That's why I'm playing it. Here it is. Proof that lockdowns are working.
I don't know if you heard, but we just had a big development in the unfolding Spygate investigation. It's just been revealed that the Justice Department's investigation.
This is me over the weekend. Got together with a bunch of people. A lot of people there I didn't know too, but that's me in the back. Such a good time. You ready to roll? 3, 2, 1. Good evening. It is still not safe to gather with people. You must remain in lockdown and refrain from gathering for your protection and the safety of those around you. The experts who you give your power away to estimate that it'll be safe to gather with people again in about 7 generations from now. And we have many other breaking news stories for you today. In a remarkable feat, the Moderna vaccine trials have shown the vaccine to be 94% effective in preventing COVID-19 symptoms. This is just what we in the world needed to hear. Almost as remarkably, COVID-19 has been shown to be 80% effective in preventing COVID-19 symptoms, as 80% of infected people simply don't have any symptoms. But for the...
So, now he's going to say this, and I'm sure you'll get it without me explaining it, but let's just be real clear here. In other words, the difference between you getting COVID-19 and probably having no symptoms is only 14% less than if you got a vaccine by Moderna with a 94% effectiveness, they think, in not having symptoms. However, what you will get when you take the vaccine, which he doesn't talk about in here, like most people get, is some kind of side effects that is kind of like getting the disease. People usually have some kind of reaction, get sick, pukey, possibly, all those problems that come. People say, oh, it's no big deal. You know, it protects you from this virus that 80% of people don't even experience any symptoms of when they have it. So 14% more effective at keeping you from getting the vaccine. 14% more effective than you getting symptoms that deal with the vaccine, symptoms that deal with the virus. Like 80% of people have no symptoms from the virus without the vaccine. So that's how stupid this world's gotten because of this virus craziness.
Individuals who do not receive a COVID-19 infection to protect them from COVID-19 symptoms, the vaccine is looking like a powerful pathway at preventing COVID-19 symptoms for them. It's without a doubt the most reality-based breakthrough a company has ever shown on their own product. In other news, you don't know anyone who's gotten a flu or a cold since last February, do you? Right? That's because those things don't exist anymore. Let's not think about that any further. In Japan, during October alone, there were more suicides related to the misery of the lockdowns than there were deaths from COVID in all of 2020. Experts suspect the only way to reduce the number of suicides from lockdowns is with more strict lockdowns. This just in, officials who impose lockdowns on societies who don't want and
So, couple quick comments on stats mentioned in there again. Remember that stat he just talked about before getting to the kids about the Japanese? How sad is that? More people in Japan have died through suicide. In other words, they murdered themselves due to depression because of the lockdowns, because of the restrictions, this COVID-19, than people have actually died in the whole year so far of people dying of COVID-19. So that's the sick tragedy there. And you just heard the one about the stats about the kids. Only 127 have died. That's 600 some odd times less. He's going to go over here. Isn't that crazy? And yet they're not doing anything to stop those. We'll let him talk on that again.
need not be worried about. By the end of 2020.
Look at that. Look at that stat. That's what I want to talk about. Again, this is kind of a comedic video, but look at that. According to the World Food Program, the number of people in LMICs facing acute food insecurity will nearly double to 265 million by the end of 2020. In other words, massive poverty leading to massive death. Look at that. 140 million people will be thrown into living extreme poverty. That's less than $1.90 a day U.S. That's what they're being thrown in because of this crazy, overbearing, draconian measures put in place by governments all over the world. This is what's happening. This is what's happening to people. They are dying far more, suffering far more because of the lockdowns than ever they were due to COVID-19.
And it's estimated
All right. So, that was Awaken with JP. Like I said, he's got quite a few videos that are worth watching. Pretty sad to see where we have come to see where we are in this world. And it is because of our wicked rejection of God's truth, because we have strayed so far from what His Word tells us we should do and how we should live And therefore today we are in the mess that we are in, and only by the grace of God will we ever come out of it. So friends, I pray that you will join me in prayer. I pray that we will all be as a people standing forward to end the abortion holocaust, end the preborn image bearer slaughter taking place in our midst by the thousands every day. Never been abated during this lockdown because they're always been open despite churches being shut down, small businesses being shut down, all kinds of places being shut down. By no means are those abortion mills being shut down. They have to be there because they're essential. It's essential to be able to murder your baby because it's a constitutional right per Roe v. Wade, they say. That's how wicked our country is. That's how inept and foolish our pro-life movement is, because you'll hear them saying Roe v. Wade's the law of the land. They feed into that wickedness, despite the fact that our Constitution obviously in no way provides for the murder of preborn image bearers. It absolutely goes against the Declaration of Independence. It absolutely goes against the 5th and 14th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution, and it would make our founding fathers roll over in their graves if they knew that someone was saying that somehow that was found in the Constitution. It is absolutely ridiculous. And Blackstone, who was the man that most of our founders and framers looked to, the number one source they looked to for founding and framing our laws in this country, the jurist out of England, who said that no law that does not comport, any law that does not comport with God's law is no law at all, Blackstone would tell you. So obviously murdering babies is against God's "you shall not murder." Obviously it is not legal anywhere, because if it contradicts God's law, it's never right. It's always unjust. It's always immoral. It's always illegal. And we're talking about murdering babies. There isn't any question. It's pretty simple. That's kindergarten. That is Christianity 101. You shall not murder. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's taken place. It's attached to all these vaccines. There's no way to get away from it. So friends, please join me in prayer, in seeking God's face, that he would end this Holocaust. He would end this wickedness. He would do it by raising up his people to be a voice, to be a force against this wickedness of abortion and against these unjust, unbiblical treatment of people overall in this country through these lockdowns and things that, although by no means do we not deserve them. Friends, we deserve far less. We deserve not far less, we deserve far more. We deserve far more than a Joe Biden, Kamala Harris presidency. We deserve a Nero/Caligula type presidency. We deserve to be strung up and put up and made into candles dipped in wax, as Nero did to his Christian population in his madness. Because we have so trampled on God's grace. We are so guilty of the blood guilt by the bloodshed in our nation from the slaughter of probably over 100 million image bearers, not just because of standard abortions, but abortions and things that aren't even labeled in pills and in states that don't have them, and even through that wicked practice called in vitro fertilization, where more children may have been murdered through that than through standard abortion, because of so many that are created in test tubes, in petri dishes, and then flushed away or frozen to freeze up and die or be abandoned. Friends, our wickedness runs deep. We are soaked in blood of the preborn, let alone through all the other wickedness, through our mistreatment of our neighbors of different ethnicity, back to slavery and everything else in between. Our wickedness knows no bounds, and only by the grace of God are we still here. So friends, again, I plead with you, join me in prayer, join me in action. May God be glorified in what we do for his glorious name's sake and for the good of his people. God bless y'all. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Glad we got the sound stuff figured out, and maybe I'll see you next time. God bless all.